All right, it seems like we have everyone. We're going to go ahead and start now. Welcome and thank you for coming to this month's DC Buzz. I'm James Bailey. I'm a lab specialist in DCBS, and I was also the second assistant camera on the upcoming film, A Time for Every Purpose. Speaking of, I'd love to introduce our awesome panel of guests this month. We have writer-director of A Time for Every Purpose, Lance Smith. Go ahead and give everyone a wave.
Hey, everybody.
We have our director of photography, producer, and DCBS instructor, Ryan Funk.
Hello, everyone.
Our story creator, producer, and editor, Quinton Macaris.
Hello.
First assistant director, producer, and DCBS instructor, Ronald Diltz II.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Sound mixer, post audio, and DCBS instructor, Andrew Raut.
Hello, everyone.
What up, Andrew?
And
What up, Funky?
We are potentially going to have our production design and on-campus film instructor, Frank Jeremiah, as well, but he's not here right now. So did I miss everyone? Anyone? Is everybody good?
We're good.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you everyone for coming. This is so exciting. I can't wait to talk about this feature. During this panel, we're going to discuss the making of the film in three segments, including pre-production, principal photography, and post-production. So just to start from the very beginning, I'd love to ask, I know that the story was a combination of Lance and Quinton. What was the story seed, and how did this come about?
That's all you, Q.
So back in 2006, when I was in my first month at Full Sail, I came up with the story and wrote a short. That was nothing like the feature turned out to be, but yeah, I mean, I met with Lance and Ryan, and we had talked about making a short, and then the pandemic happened, and then we got a writer, and he turned the short into a feature, and kind of the rest is history.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's where there's way more to it than that.
Well, to take that and run with it, yeah, I mean, we had this great idea. Quinton and I had worked together years ago and had a relationship going back a decade, doing different things in this business, but I was always on camera and was making the switch behind the camera and was directing. I directed a comedy pilot that Q jumped in on to edit. And that's where our working relationship began. And that's really when we started talking about this idea and the short. And it was always about, yeah, we'll do a short. Met up with Ryan Funk over breakfast. And it was a good breakfast. Yeah, we talked about just working together and our ideas. And it really wasn't even about the project so much. It was just how you operate, what are you interested in, that kind of thing. And when the full script got in front of me, Quinton and I gave you the backstory, so because he was just as easy to work with now as he was back when, and it allowed me to rewrite it. And I didn't rewrite it because I didn't like it. I just couldn't hear it as it was on paper. So we changed a lot of the dialogue, and I restructured a lot of sort of making the background. But it was still the core story was still there. That's what we always had to adhere to, that core story. And so I'm really proud of what we ended up coming up with. And it was a collaborative effort from beginning to end.
Very cool. I'm not sure how much you're willing to tell because you don't want to spoil anything, but could you give the audience an idea of the plot in some way, like what the film is about?
Q, tell them how it started, like what it was about in terms of like what you had in.
So originally it was like 12 Angry Men, and it was about a baptism class, and the four lead characters kind of always kind of stayed the same, but they were sit and tell their story about how they came to Christ, and we would flash out from that room and do flashbacks of everybody telling their story. So it would always mainly be in one room, and now it's developed into following three characters through their own stories and them colliding together.
Yeah, and it became, these. So it's four main storylines, and it didn't have a traditional plot, subplot, plot A, B plot intermingling throughout. It didn't have a traditional setup, and that's sort of what made it difficult. in a way. But we just kept working through it, and yeah, and the story in the end, honestly, whatever it was on paper was one thing, and whatever it was in production was another thing. And honestly, unless it's like all films, it became something new in the edit. And I can't give anything away, but yeah, Q, to his credit as an editor, not even producer or creator, just as an editor, found a way to set these storylines appropriately so your audience is constantly engaged throughout the film. And it's non-traditional sort of play. I don't know. I think really holds an audience. So Q, you really knocked it out of the park on that.
I agree with that for sure.
I would love to hear also from the beginning, sort of pre-production, when people were brought on. I'd love to go around the room and get everybody's pre-production process, just so the audience, people in the audience, can get a sense of what it's like to put together a film. I know you're not going to be able to tell everything, but what was your process like? We'll start with Q.
Well, I guess my process was I wanted to find a director and a cinematographer and a producing partner that I could work with. And I found two great ones in Lance and Ryan. And then really from there, we sat together and talked about, Ryan took care of the production team, and Lance took care of kind of taking the story that I had created and kind of and bringing it to life. And then, just trusting the people that you work with, really.
Very cool. Lance, how was your post-production or pre-production process?
I mean, for me, it was a dream. My main focus is always performance. I began my career in front of the camera. So unlike everybody here working in the system and learning it from the machine works and moving forward, I started in front of the camera and worked backwards to meet everybody. So the fact that they were willing to let this rookie, feature director at this thing was amazing. And then I just leaned on everybody. And this is where, we talk pre-production, that man right there in the beautiful key light, Ronald Diltz, set the tone in our meetings. And coming together, I was kind of in awe and really intimidated by what Ronald was bringing to the table, by what Ryan was bringing to the table. Andy kind of scared the hell out of me in our first meeting. I was like, oh my God, this guy's got experience and I'm going to be laughed off set. But as far as the pre-pro goes, in terms of like building the machine, I just leaned in heavy to what I knew was on the table. I knew everybody's resume, and I just fell into what Q and Ryan and Ron were building. And so I focused strictly on the finding the right actors, the right talent, and we were still tweaking the script, on into production. So that's how I focused on pre-pro, and Ronald, man, just killed it.
Well, you're throwing to Ronald. Let's hear some of Ronald's pre-production.
Well, mine's is not all butterflies and the birds, but no, it was amazing. Originally Funk, Ryan had hit me up about it, and he wanted me to meet Q, and we set up that meeting. And I just remember Q and I just had so much in common, just talking to him, and we just bonded so quickly. And then he started giving me more hats, like, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to. And so it got really busy really quickly. And eventually we were able to spread those hats out and allow me to focus on ADing, which really was important, because it was definitely a lot of work to get everybody on the same page and move the project forward. I think something else that I learned too is I couldn't play by the book on this project. I had to really hang out with Ryan and hang out with Lance and really learn what way would be the best way to approach this project as an AD, allowing them to have fun, but trying to keep them also on schedule. And it worked out really well. We was able to get everything we needed each day, and I couldn't be more proud to work with such an amazing crew.
So our director of photography, yeah, Ryan, I would love to hear. I know you've talked to me a little bit about your pre-production process. I know it was a lot. I'd love to hear about that.
Well, I want to start with what some of the things that Q and I started with, and that was, and Lance, was the logistics, like not just the logistics of the production as a whole. This is even before we started hiring people, but the logistics of how we were going to work together and how we wanted the crew to work together and stuff. We really had to innovate because our budget wasn't big by no means. So we had to really look at innovative ways to spread everything out nice and clean, how we can have everybody work together and be just as invested as we were into the film. And we also had to think about not really ways to cut corners, but ways that we can reshape these corners to be able to hire the people that we wanted and to be able to shoot a film comfortably, not with long days and a shorter period of time. I mean, it was a 15-day feature. We had 4 days off and we didn't go over 10 and a half, maybe 11 hours in a day. And that's with grip and electric. So we had a lot of work to do in that pre-production. And that was a lot to do with Q and Lance and Ronald and all of us getting together. And then when we started hiring people, we handpicked everybody from scratch. We were like, the reason why this person is here, everything had a purpose. And that sounds funny because the movie's called A Time for Every Purpose, but we literally handpicked. Ronald was a given, obviously. Lance was there since day one, but then we started handpicking people like Frank, who just showed up. His art direction and art design, the way that he has always, I've been blessed to work with Frank multiple times, and the way that he works his production design is the same exact way that Andy works his audio and the way that I work camera and film. We truly focus on these emotional and psychological implementations within the piece, so we can truly like exhaust every avenue to be able to get the perfect piece for those specific moments and those times. And the best thing about Frank too, sorry to blow smoke your way, Frank, but he does it on the smallest budgets possible. Like he gets it, you know what I'm saying? And the same with Andy and the same with Ronald. And then Lance, you know, he's sitting there being modest, talking about, you know, he was riding our coattails and stuff, but in all reality, what he was doing is allowing us to really shine, letting us do what we do without any kind of micromanagement. So we all like, and not to say he ever would or anything, but we all literally worked on an even plane. And that wasn't just us 5 or us 6. That was everybody from the PAs all the way up to the producers. Everybody was on the same plane. And that was part of the innovation of trying to really get the movie to be comfortable to shoot in that environment, and also to be able to get the absolute best product we could possibly get, but at the same time, not peel anybody, hurt anybody, or upset anybody. And, you know, a lot of those innovations, you know, we would come up with at 3 a.m. in the morning and be like texting each other like, man, I kind of have a really good idea. You know what I mean? And we would talk about it, and then we would go, yeah, let's do it. Let's implement that. And, you know, some of those things were pretty simple, like make sure you feed the crew very good meals, not just meals, you know what I mean? Or simple stuff like that, you know? While we were shooting, some people were like, you know, sometimes we had come having had, which means, you know, eat breakfast before you come to work. Well, that didn't really work out. So we decided to go ahead and start getting breakfast and stuff. And then obviously going further than that and making sure everybody is well fed and snacks and so on and so forth. But that's just a morsel of the things that we had to think of. And that's why pre-production was 3 months versus 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So there was a lot to it. There was a lot.
Yeah.
And I could talk for hours on it too.
And I will say this, Slack, the app, Slack.
Yeah.
It was perfect for us. I had used it on another project and we rolled right in, and Slack was the best way for all of us to just ping, 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 especially Frank. Frank and the Slack, because it was just picture. What about this? What about this? What about this? And yeah, and Frank along with Melody with wardrobe. It was, yeah, our pre-pro was tight because we were all communicating and we were all respecting each other's thing. And that's, you know, yeah, I lean into everybody and I want everybody to bring their best to the table. That's the way I was brought up in production, be it TV or film, was always encourage the best out of people, get the best out of them, because whatever position you're in, you can't do it all. You need everybody's best, and damn sure we got it.
Well, Frank, they've been thrown to you a lot. I'd love to hear like your process. I know you use a CAD program to sort of like previs a lot of your stuff, right? What was your pre-production like?
Um, well, with every script that I work on, um, from the art direction approach, you go with the genre, the time, place setting, the mood, function, all of these different variables that tell the story. You think of every aspect of every character, and how they relate to the story. You look at their wealth, their social status, all of those things. And then you start with a photo morgue based on that. And I started doing that before I think we had like our official like meeting with everybody. But that's what you're supposed to do. And that's where you make your corrections, because in my mind's eye, if I'm thinking this room should be blue and Lance is thinking it should be blue, we got to make sure it's the same blue, not, just what I think. So, you bounce back ideas like that as an example. So I gather pictures of things that could be just for inspiration, or sometimes it's like, what does someone of this social status, this background, this, wealth, what would they have in their house, or what kind of clothes would they wear, or what kind of possessions would they have, and how would they decorate their house? So you go through pictures that you could find through any means, mostly the internet, but it could be magazines as well, anything with pictures, and you find like it'll just jump out because you've built the character of the sets in your head from all those things that I had mentioned. And so when you see it, like, what, I like this look here. I like this look here. I have this space on location like this, so I want to implement this look with it. And then it's going out and accumulating. You have to accumulate your prop list and set dressing of everything that's going to be in there. So when you're looking at an empty house, it's like, whew, man, I got to find a lot of stuff to fill all these spaces. And if I was this character, you can't say if it was me living here. You have to go, if I am Ruth and this is my kitchen, okay, then what kind of food can I afford? What kitchen utensils and things would I have placed? How would I arrange my kitchen? And and so you have to get into the character's head that way. I actually, there was a moment in pre-production when we were looking at the location and Lance said, I want the drugs dropped right here, on this table. Ended up not being put there, but, with that table there, I was like, all right, in this corner of the house, I'm like, okay, what would someone have right here by this window? And I thought of just a little work desk, like where you do your mail, your bills, your things like that. But then I came up with the idea, I got this big blank space on the wall, and this person's going through rehab. She's 5 years in, and there's this struggle. And what's her higher power? It's God, but it's also her son, So I had the idea of putting a picture of Jesus on the wall, or some religious, because I didn't know if what particular denomination we were going with, and I think it's very non-denomination. I think so. I asked the actress playing Ruth if she had any idea of, like, the character, what picture would you like? Because, like, I grew up being Italian, and there's this picture of Jesus with the thorns in his head, and he's looking up and he's bleeding, and I'm like, that might be too much, and then she goes, I have two pictures, if you wouldn't mind. And I was just like, okay. So, and it was because she experienced a personal struggle herself, and those pictures meant something to her too. So in a way, it's a bit of an Easter egg for her too. Maybe it helps with her performance, I don't know, but it was something I asked the talent, like, hey, how do you feel? You're just bouncing ideas. She could have said, I don't have anything. And then I would have defaulted to Lance about, what he would have liked to have seen. But then I felt the rest of it should be a collage of her son. So I asked the actor, the mother of the son, to if she could provide pictures of him from birth till now, to create a collage with, and she was more than happy to. So I created this shrine there because there could be a juxtaposition of, there's the drugs that are dropped here on the table, And this is my life now, is
Mhm.
God and my son. And it's like, if I go back to this, I don't have that, you know?
Yeah,
So
you built that from scratch. It was impressive. It was all,
yeah,
I mean, it was an empty room, and he did everything he's telling you is like detail, 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 and it makes it. It really makes it. Those little bitty things Frank inspired in that make those scenes.
yeah. And I asked, like, the house had window dressings, but they didn't have curtains. It had all blinds. And I was like, you know, you're thinking budget wise here, you know, so you're just like, all right, do I have to get curtains and curtain rods and all this stuff? Because it didn't have curtain rods. And then it was like, am I allowed to screw into the walls? So I had to clear all that with Q. Like, can I screw into the walls, or do I got to get some kind of special mounting tape or something like that? And he's like, yeah, they said you can screw into the walls. I'm like, great. So then it was like, well, what color should the curtain? And I asked Lance, I go, do you want curtains? He's like, yeah, some splash of color. That's all he said. So then I was like, and I was like, okay, she's going through struggle. All right, color theory. What colors work with struggle? It was black, red, and green. And I was like, I don't like green. Black seems too on the nose with darkness. So I was like, I think red. And then I found this kind of like burgundy red type color, just kind of splashed like a red wine. And then I put that in the CAD design, and Lance loved it. And then he sent me a picture from the Matrix of a red that was on a shirt. He's like, if you can find something as close to this as possible. And you know, that's how it works. It's bouncing ideas off of each other. And then Ryan chimed in the production meeting, says, red also is blood of Christ, but you know, and all these other religious meanings, which the script is heavily based on. So it all just kind of serendipitously worked.
Yeah, and it's important because all of these little details, it's like audience, I mean, you guys know we're all filmmakers here. Audiences aren't aware of the stuff that we're throwing at them, you know, subconsciously. All this stuff, all of it adds up to a well textured and developed visual medium.
And here's how you get it to work too, is if you think it might work, but you're like not sure, just do it, because it's going to possibly work. If you think the audience isn't going to recognize or anything, it's not about the audience recognizing what you're doing. It's about the audience feeling it and being a part of it. And that's very important. We want the audience to have an experience, not just see something from the outside. And that's what we're doing. Everything that we did, every single little pinpoint that we did, that Frank did, that Andy did, that Lance did, that Q did, that Ronald did, there was an absolute purpose for it. And if there wasn't a purpose, we had to discuss it. And if we couldn't come up with a purpose, then we had to get rid of it. And that was it. And then we had to focus. So those things, whenever you're setting something up and you're like, I wonder if I should add this or add that, and this is the reason why, the answer is yes, you should add it. Because if not, then you're gonna lose out on extra texture and things that the audience could possibly feel. And that's the most important thing for us in our job.
That's a key word that I've come to appreciate more working with Funk, is texture. You know, a lot of times, like in film, there's a lot of extra, because like even if you look at Funk's background or Ronald's or Lance's, there's all this texture back there, and Q's is not focused, but it breaks it up. If that's not there, it's flat. And that's a huge thing in art department. It's like, have more. If it's too much, like I bought at the dollar store, a ton of religious candles. And as I was dressing the sofa table behind the couch, I just put everything down at first, and immediately you could see it. It's like, this ain't right, but I'm going to leave it because that's how I had it in the design, and that's what was approved. And then Lance comes by and he's like, too shriny. Let's take half of it away, you know? And I was like, yeah, he's right. You know, and we took half away. So it's better to have that, and be prepared for, you know, you got to, especially with art department, you got to look at every square inch and understand where the camera is going to be, so that you know that it's covered with some sort of texture that breaks up the background, that makes the frame more interesting. And then again, you know, some of the time you come across those answers just through collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to throw to Andy. I know that, Andy, you knew beforehand that you were going to be doing post audio. So what was your pre-production like with audio, and did it change knowing that you were going to be doing post audio?
That is a fantastic question. I have a unique position in this film because traditionally, when we make a movie, it's not typical that the person who's doing the production audio is going to be doing the post audio or any other like sound effects recording or what have you. Now, when I first read the script, obviously my first role was to do the production audio. So there are certain things that we have to go through. That first thing would be, okay, well, where are we recording? What are the locations? Because that has real implications to the audio, as far as if we're shooting outside, if we're shooting inside, what time of year, because we dealt with a lot of rain stuff, rain issues. So I'm looking at location. Next, I'm looking at the scenes and, how many actors, have lines that they're delivering, because that will affect my logistical planning regarding wiring actors. Okay. This was a movie where we had the budget where I could wire, all the actors. Now, it's one thing to wire 8 actors. It's another to wire a couple in the scene. So, I had to look at that. And then I had to think about, am I going to use a boom op? Because I could have had a boom op where I was just mixing and my boom op would be booming and wiring. But because of the way we had to shoot this and the logistics and the fast paced, when you're working with a full sound team, which would be the sound mixer, the boom op, and the utility, there's a lot of communication that has layers of communication. And I opted to do the booming myself and doing what we call bag work, where I'm wearing the field bag with all the wires and mixers, and I'm booming and I'm wiring. And I opted to do that because when I was working with Funk, and they had a lot of pre-production discussions about what they wanted their shot to be, if it was a moving shot, tracking shot. And I found myself, we were constantly dancing around with each other with all these complicated shots. So I had to communicate with Lance. I had to communicate with Ryan. And I just opted, well, I don't want any more levels of communication. So I would go up to Ryan and say, okay, what's the shot? Is it a wide shot? Is it a cowboy shot? Are we moving? And then we would rehearse it and boom, we go. So I would be thinking about what was going on in the shot. So then when we are in the throes of production, okay, guys, I'm going to throw you all under the bus on this one. We'll spend an hour lighting a scene, but they'll give me 5 minutes to wire up a talent. I'm just sorry. That's just unfortunately the way it is. And I see Lance laughing.
Where were you when we?
Because what happens is wiring talents, that's the last thing before they go on, because we have to be respectful. If Lance is working with an actor on a scene, I'm not going to go up and start wiring them, because they're in their mode. I mean, they're in their characters. So I have to kind of, go up and wire them. But we had a great wardrobe, Melanie, and I worked with her a lot, because one thing when we're doing pre-pro or even in the throes of production, wardrobe is their thing. I'm not going to go up and rifle through their wardrobe just to wire something up. There is a protocol that we respect each other's position and department, and we have to work. So when I was doing my pre-pro, I'm looking at the script here. Now, at the same time, because I'm going to be doing the post-production, we'll talk more about this when we get to the post-production. I'm not only spotting the script for what I need to do on set, I'm spotting it for down the road. So if I know that I can record certain prop movements, so I don't have to worry about them later in post, and I get them there, I'm saving a lot of time. So I'm thinking about that too. For instance, there's a scene where one of the characters stumbles over a bunch of, his belongings outside his apartment. Okay, I have one of two choices. I can just worry about his dialogue and not care about that, and then in post have to rebuild that and take a lot of extra time. Or if I know it's coming because I've spotted the script, I'll get my microphone down there and record that. Okay, so then I've already, killed two birds with one stone. I've done my production audio, and then I've also got the sound. So it's rare, guys. It's very rare that the same person is going to do both, because typically what happens, the production audio sound team is only concerned with the quality of the dialogue. Now, here's another thing that I was blessed with, is because I'm doing the post-production and the dialogue editing and all that, I'm intimately knowledgeable of the film, of how it was recorded. So I know the quality of that dialogue in the recordings when I get to them in post. So there are no surprises. And I can also make mental notes what I'm going to have to fix in post. So my pre-production wasn't your typical way we go about doing it, because even though I was doing pre-pro for my specific role, for me, it's all working together, which will really help me, because now the film is in post-production, and essentially, guys, we'll talk about this later, but it's in my lap right now. It has finally come full circle back to me. So that was very unique for me. And when I had conversations with Quinton and Ryan and Lance throughout, we would have these discussions about how certain things were going to play out in post-production. I know that's kind of long-winded, but it's a very unique way of looking at how I'm going to get my work done. Does that
Very
work?
cool. Yeah. I feel like you were able to cover principal photography and post all in one answer. So that was awesome.
Well, it was in one spotting session when I read the script,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking, I'm not just reading this script, making notes of how many actors and if I have to wire or boom. I'm literally making post-production notes at the same time.
Yeah.
But to add to that, Andy and I had great conversations on set. I loved our conversations on set. We discussed film and we discussed this process. But Andy's whole philosophy with the way he handled audio at all of its levels, knowing that he was handing it off to himself, is key in my whole philosophy of filmmaking. And that, like, I have, the theory that it's not a theory, it's factual. It's the script is written with the director in mind, and the director is directing with the editor in mind, and the editor should edit with the audience in mind. It's who's getting this next. And if everyone in every department is cognizant of what overlaps there are, be it Frank, understanding how this is affecting, Andy's talking about the wardrobe, but he knows not to overstep his bounds too much with there, but there is a relationship to be had. If you're cognizant of what you're doing and how it affects the next person in the chain, it's a much smoother production from beginning to end. And that philosophy is something that I think, carried throughout this production.
What I think was so amazing was how Ryan handpicked the crew with all our various superpowers, if you will. And there wasn't ever a time when there was any drama we all respected each other in the level of our abilities, that it was just like, okay, we got to go in and make this happen. And if there was an issue, we got on it, and it was taken care of. And that's a big deal when you're working with people who you don't know, and you don't know what their personalities are like, and what their the way they like to do things, because we all have to work together. So it was truly amazing. And if it wasn't for that, what we had to do, we had to shoot in how many days, Ryan? 15?
15 days. 15
Oh my
days.
gosh, brother. And it was, if we didn't all have those, our
Superpowers.
I don't think I really don't
I'll
think
take that.
Yeah,
Could
right.
have made it happen. And it was just, it was hard work, make no mistake, but it was a great experience.
Very fulfilling. Very fulfilling.
Yeah, and sometimes things didn't always go as planned, and there was a lot of flexibility. It was like you don't sit there and go, oh, now what do we do? It's yeah, all right, now let's solve the problem.
Yeah.
There's rain, or there's this, or there's that.
I think my biggest thing was going at it with our gaffer. And it was so cool that, and I didn't worry about it, because I knew I'd be able to get the good sound, but I would literally stake my claim where I was going to get in, to get the boom in. And he said, oh, dude, no, sorry, man, we got to put a flag here. I got to put a seat in. I really want you to go from the other side. Just like, oh, and they would light me off the stage. In other words, everywhere I would try to go, there would be a light stuck there, creating a shadow right on the actor's forehead. So, but it was a lot of fun. But we all knew that it was all about the film. It wasn't about our egos or well, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to light it this way, or I'm going to boom it this way. It was just like, we have a film to make. It was so cool.
I want to give everybody an opportunity. We're getting some anecdotes about principal photography. Does anybody want to jump up and tell your favorite part of being on set, or a memorable moment from principal photography?
God, there were so many. I mean, it was an amazing 15 days.
Yeah, I would say for me, it was definitely that first day, because we did a lot of, it's a lot of stressing to go into play to make sure everything is scheduled accordingly. Lance is doing rehearsals, Q is handling producing stuff, and Ryan handling producing stuff. Ryan trying to get his shots in order with Lance. And then I'm trying to do the schedule for this, and also Chuck, our UPM, is getting everything and handling, the locations and everything he was doing. So it was a lot of stress, on my end, and I'm sure Chuck can agree, and some of us. But when we got on set that first day, I just remember feeling like a child on a playground again. I had my family with me, and we were in this together, and we we're about to do this film, this film that we all were so proud about and so excited to see to come together. And we touched and agreed. We did our prayer to start it out. And it's funny, every day that I missed the prayer, it rained. And so I had people coming at me,
Ronald.
Ron, why you didn't pray? And so little things like that, we built that bond on set, and I felt terrible when I didn't pray and it did rain. But yeah, to me, that first day was so special. And then of course you get to the last day when you do your martini shot. But those are probably my two favorite moments.
I have to say, if I could the first day was crazy, because we're here 3 months deep of pre-pro, and we pulled up, and you kind of look around and you're like, oh my gosh, like there's like 30 people running around setting up tables and building cameras and stuff. And you're like, it's actually happening. Like, oh, like this is actually physically going to happen right at this moment, at this time. And there's no turning back. And it's one of the scariest and most exciting feelings in the world, for sure. But my favorite moment was for sure, like watching some of the people that I haven't had any like, you know, camaraderie or anything with, and see that those relationships develop and just be super hyped on what they've become. You know what I'm saying? Especially from the beginning to the end. That was amazing. Like, you know, Ronald and I worked together, I think one time for this, and it was amazing. And watching Lance just kill it was just a lot of fun.
Yes.
And it was a lot of fun working with him, and you know, working with Frank again and Andy is always a blessing. And then Q and I being able to work together like hand and foot. And we went through like a lot of just everything. We had to go through small little situations into big giant situations to really handle them. And we had to do it behind the scenes. So not one crew member knew if there was any kind of issue or anything, because that spreads like cancer. We can't have that. You know what I mean? Especially in a 15 day shoot. So me and him would be back and forth, like, you know, secretly doing stuff, and you're looking around and everybody's super happy. And you know that in 1 second, one little drop of one pin at that moment could destroy it all. And you're just like, we got to get this worked out. You know what I mean? And we just be over there working out. And then we turn around and be like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, and then it was go time. But to see these people like develop was just amazing.
Yeah,
It was.
In the very first day, so I have like 3 memories that pop out. One is the first day. So this is no matter how much you plan, something can go wrong. Okay. So I loaded a box truck filled with God knows how many props and everything. And then the first thing we shoot requires a flyer that I never printed up. It was supposed to be an eviction notice. And I absolutely shuddered because we didn't have a printer on location. So I had to send my set dresser back to Full Sail to print it up. But the shot was going to come off before that. Like, they were about ready to shoot it. They just took like a production thing and they hunted. And to me, that was like horrifying. But to talk about, you know, not blowing things up or anything like that, Lance was just like, you know, I put too much emphasis on that. You know, don't worry about it. You know, anything will do, that kind of thing. And I'm like, no, really. It's like, and I felt like it's the worst thing to go up to the director and say, I don't have the thing that I'm supposed to have today. You know, it was just god awful. And then just the way he handled it, like, hey, don't worry about it. You know, we'll shoot around it, that kind of thing. And then what's funny is later on, she came back with it printed and he saw it and was like, oh, like he had this look like, maybe we can reshoot it. Is there time?
I was like, that's really good.
Yeah.
No,
But
it was little. It was a good moment. I remember that, Frank. And it was like, if I focus on this, if this becomes a thing, it's ridiculous. I knew how to shoot around it. And again, it's like I knew what the scene looked like and how we'd make it work. But I greatly appreciated the fact that you felt the way you felt about that. I was like, I knew right then. I was like, this man is into every detail of his job, and I knew that moment wouldn't happen again with any other set design piece.
Well, it definitely, even though I was sick to my stomach, it's like a horrible thing. But the way you treated me and how you handled the situation was just a great lesson in leadership. And then
Thanks.
Another great memory, this goes to you too, Lance, is just watching the talent. I've made a handful of films, a lot of student films, and you see a lot of bad acting. And then there's some where you think, all right, this is going to be good. And then you see it and you're like, it's not that great. And just watching our talent on set, there were so many times where I would turn to whoever was with me, you know, in Video Village and be like, oh my God, that was great. Or, you know, just seeing our talent, all of them, 100%. It was just like, oh man, this is going to be so good. And that's a great feeling to have when you're making a film. It carries you. And then, I know what the third one was. I don't know. I know it was a really good feeling. I can't remember what it was, but you know, all of it was just, oh, I remember. I think it was either the second to last day or the last day. And to get us, like, we would always meet in the morning, like Ronald, Funk, Lance, myself, and Brian, our gaffer. And we would talk about what we're doing. Like, we knew what we were doing. You know, we had a shot list and everything, but it was like, all right, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to, okay. I have this. I have this. I have this. It's all these just checks and balances. And then Ryan just pulls out his cell phone and it's playing Big Pimpin'. And all of us just, that was, I don't know, man.
Jay-Z, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You gotta-
little Jay-Z. It was, it pumped me up. It put a smile on my face to see Ronald breaking it down, He went into his zone. So that was a great memory.
I have to ask real quick, if you don't mind. Sorry, Andy.
That's okay.
James, what was yours?
You know,
You
it's
were
funny.
a big part of mine, by the way. Like having James with us. He was handpicked. He was one. I was like, I have to have James on my camera.
James
crew,
was
100.
on point.
Yeah. So
I think it had to I think it's making sure we were all on the same metadata, with Scripty and what he wrote on his slate and what I was programming.
yeah.
That has to be right.
Yeah, that was my favorite part.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, honestly, my favorite part was I remember we had a gap day where we were gonna have like July 4th off a couple of days, and I remember being on set is so surreal when you're shooting like that, and it's so hectic and it's a lot of work and it feels like summer camp, and then you go away and you're like, oh, I need a day off. You have a day off or two, and then all you can think about is getting back on set. So for me, it was like
100%.
that feeling of like just doing something that you love to do. In those ways, it just like even after the feature ended too, I was like, oh, I wish we had another one lined up to go, because it's just a fun way to live your life.
I was going to say,
Absolutely.
I think what I found memorable was in my particular position as sound, I get to work with every single department. I am interfacing at some level with every department, whether it be understanding about what Ryan was doing in the shot, or what Brian was doing with lighting, or wardrobe, or what have you. And that was so wonderful for me, as opposed to just working in my department. Obviously, we all have our own things we have to pay attention to, but when we're making a film and we're all in, we're working with each other. And for me, it'd be hard to pick out. I mean, I could pick out something from every experience I had with each and every one of you.
So there's a lot of Full Sail students in the audience right now, and I wanted to ask you all, because we did have students on the set, and I wanted to ask what that experience was like, and seeing them grow. Like how was your interaction with the students that were on set? And also, just as a side note, people in the audience, I'm sure, are interested in getting into these kinds of productions. What is your advice for them and how they can jump into that?
Man, this is a whole nother Zoom session on this one. You know what I mean? First, if you guys don't mind, actually, Q, if you want to go, maybe chat, because you were the one that approached JB about some of them. So if you want to go first, do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say networking and making sure that you get out there and you interface and get along with all of your students that you're working with, your fellow students and your teachers. That's really key. I mean, when I went through, I had Ryan as a teacher, I had Frank as a teacher, I had Andy as a teacher. I worked with Lance, the Daily Buzz. The investor for the movie was actually a production assistant at a television show. She was starting her second life, and so somebody that was, I'd say just building relationships is really key. I mean, my wife and I, we own a video production business company, and 95% of our business comes from relationships that we have when we're out there. I would say that's probably number one. I mean, I had relationship with a lot of the crew members, and now I have relationships with all of them.
It's funny. Go ahead.
I would just real quick to add to that. It's like coming from an actor's perspective, like that always rang true. Networking. But the thing I hated about actors, and I guess it happens more with actors because face. When you network, it isn't about what can I get from somebody. It's what can I add to what they're doing. What can I add to where they're going? They're going somewhere. I want to be on that train. What can I add? Not what can you do for me? And that holds true at all levels of life and business. So find those trains that are running, and how can I make that thing run better or faster or more efficient?
Yeah, and I think with that, the the one thing that people miss is when we say relationships, a relationship is longevity. You know what I mean? And so when Lance says that, it's 100% true. Go up and start to communicate with somebody and learn them and connect with them, not for yourself, but for them, because that relationship is going to be 50-50. They're going to give to you just as much as you give to them, 100%. And that happened here a lot. Like we all grew and we all became very, very close after this production, you know, and not just us 5, I'm talking all 30 of us, you know what I mean? Like we all hang out still all the time, and we all do different things. And I think we all still have mass texts that go to everybody from the feature where we can still communicate. Like the whole camera crew, James, you all are still on a thread where you chat still, and everybody's across the country from each other. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
That's what it's about, is that longevity. Because that
And
longevity is going to
I'm
carry.
always hanging out with the sound team.
Yeah.
You know, for my set dresser, my first choice was a work study I had a few years ago, and she's now an art department coordinator, and she was gonna end her film the day we started. And she's like, I can't just do that, like jump from one to the other, you know. And also I needed some help in pre-production, you know. So then another student had come back to Florida who had just graduated, and I liked his work ethic. He wasn't a work study of mine, but I told him, I says, I'm checking into a few people, but you know. And then the student that I wanted to hire, she gave me someone from the set that she was working on, but again, he wouldn't be hired until that time. And then I had my own work study, Alejandra. But the first half, you know, and she had to, you know, she was my work study before the pandemic, and then during it, there was sometimes she came in and worked on the set. But her presence wasn't impressing me, you know, and all of that. And then right before I got the call from Funk, there was like a period of a month and a half of her just coming in every day and putting in work on things related to the art department. And so I kind of, I let her know that I was going to be working on this film, so there wouldn't be any work study hours for her for those 15 days. And she was like, oh, what am I going to do for work? And I said, well, I says, you have been coming in a lot. And I'm like, but I'm going to be honest with you, you know, some of the inconsistency in your work was concerning me, which is why I didn't come to you right away. You know, there was more people in front of the line in front of you. And, you know, and I told her, I go, this is what we would have to do and all this kind of stuff. Would you be willing to do it? And she's just like, yeah. And I says, all right, well, this is what they said that they would offer, you know, for pay. And she went, oh, I'll show up every day, you know, because it was a great improvement over work study money. So, and she was a dream, you know. One of the things that also helped convince me was I knew I had to make a lot of props, like signage and pill bottle labels and things that would require Photoshop and Illustrator, some things that are not my strong suit. You know, I came from a drafting design background. And she's like, yeah, I can do that. So anything you see in that movie that's designed, I defaulted to her, and she performed excellently, you know. So anything that was graphic design, I let her handle. And then she was my like gopher runner. Like when we realized like, oh, the camera's pointing this way and we need to change out what's on the wall. You know, I'd send her to the store and she performed excellently. So you need to be coachable, and if someone's going to hire you, they got to see that you care about your job. And I wasn't seeing that from her at first in the first part of her work study, which made me hesitant to hire her. So keep that in mind. There was a lot of times early in my career when I was very green that guys would keep me on jobs and convince the boss to keep me on a job that didn't require an extra body so that they could train me. All right. And the boss would agree to that. And it's only because of, you know, the work ethic and the ability to be coachable and to listen to what someone's telling you to do. If you can do that, then, you know, you'll make mistakes. Don't worry about that. But I mean, worry about it. But when you do exactly what your mentor is showing you, your mentor is going to want to show you more and keep giving you more and more and more, and they're going to carry you along the way. But if you don't put in that effort, then they're going to forget your number.
Yeah, if you're into what you're doing, they'll notice.
Can I jump in on this? Because I had a very, very special moment. You know, I was thinking about, well, what are the most memorable moments? But this actually ties into what we're talking. First off, to go back to what Lance was saying, bring value. You have to show and be able to communicate the value that you're bringing. Make yourself indispensable. Make yourself to the point where different departments are fighting over you. And the reason I bring that up, we had a wonderful PA on the film named Sid. And Sid was a PA, so we had her doing a bunch of stuff, and PA type stuff. And I found out through a little birdie told me that she was interested in audio. So because I was the only sound crew, I needed some help, about changing out batteries and transmitters. I'd say, hey, Sid, I could tell on my receiver some transmitter needed new batteries. I'd say, here's how you do it. Go do it. Because if she wasn't doing something, I put her to work. And maybe that's the teacher in all of us, in the mentor. She was coachable. And then I would have her help me carry wires to wardrobe. And after I worked with our wardrobe, where she could wire, Sid would do this. And this is one of the coolest things, and for all of us, if we have the opportunity to change lives, we should do it. And so we're out shooting this scene. And granted, there was no dialogue. It wasn't a high pressure scene. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So we have some characters walking. And I'm thinking to myself, how can I help this person? How can I give them an experience that will change them? And I motioned to her and I said, come over here, hold this. And I gave her the boom pole. And I said, I want you to hold it like this. Because I had already scouted out what I wanted the move to be. And if it didn't work, I could just rebuild it in post. And then I put the headphones on her. And I said, here's what we're going to do. And when Ryan says speed, I'm going to hit record and you're going to boom this. And she was like, what? But the point being, she, was scared, to death. But, I said, you can do this. And now when I get the opportunity to work with her, it's like all things audio. But when they were on the set, it's just like, I'd say, can you go do this for me? He said, no, I got to go do this PA thing over here. And I'd be like, oh, really? That's the impact that if you show yourself to be that, then, you'll be invited back to the set. And I felt I needed to give a shout out to Sid because she really truly made my life on the set a lot easier. So make yourself indispensable. And
we are running a little bit low on time, so I do want to jump into post-production. And then we have a surprise for everyone that we will get to, but I do want to throw to Lance and Quinton and Andy for post-production. Just what has that process been like? How are things progressing? And what was it like seeing the first cut?
So we got really lucky. I had my assistant editor actually stayed with us, but he was building the assembly edit as we were shooting. So that really helped us push along the editing process. So we had the first rough cut together, well, assembly edit together, and then Lance came over and we spent, I think, 6 sessions together building out a rough cut before we would send it to anybody. And it's been we have a locked picture edit and the color's mostly done, which we wanted to get a locked edit before we turned it over to Andy, so we weren't messing with him and his workflow. But it was really interesting, you know, from a story perspective, just what it originated to finally what it ended up and what got left on the cutting room floor. Was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I mean, Q and I have a really good working relationship that goes back almost a decade now. I mean, not in the same capacity, but just knowing each other and communicating and being friends. And the editing process for me, I mean, you know, it's put together, there's a rough, but, you know, my expertise and my whole thing is performance and story and feel. And I knew what we got on set. I knew we captured it, but I'll be honest with you, seeing the first rough, I mean, it's rough. And as a director, it's like, oh my God, what have we done? You second guess everything you did for the 15 days of production. And you know, and I've read stories. I mean, everybody from Scorsese to Spielberg, they all want to puke on a first rough cut because it's not what you had in here, but it's what you've got. And then before you know it though, now what we have is what I had in here and in here. And editing is all about nuance. Everything you're doing on production, you think you plan this whole thing and you got so much time for this shot and this shot and this shot. What you're doing is you're gathering color. You're gathering color and you're putting it on your palette. And in editing is where you paint your picture. And it isn't in production. It's in the edit room. It's there that it comes together. And then it's about nuance and detail and reason. And every frame matters. And it's like you can be too many frames too long on a shot, and you're like, it's killing the scene. And I know that sounds so you're paying attention to every little detail, but you're asking to hold someone's attention for an hour and a half or 2 hours. Every frame matters, and so you get down to the nitty gritty. But man, we take it too far this way, and we dial it in, and then all of a sudden we look at it, and we're like, oh my God, this is good. Look at what we did. And it's a fun process, but editing is an entirely different production battlefield.
The frame for every purpose.
No frame for every purpose.
Yeah, every frame is purposeful.
Yeah.
Everything you do should have a purpose. And you know, like what Lance was saying, it's like sculpting. If you were to imagine a sculptor taking a big block of granite, they're going to take certain tools and they're going to, you know, start, you know, chiseling away. And then eventually you get to the fine tools and then you end up with the pieta, you know, sculpture, you know, that sort of thing. But for me, sound is the other half of the film. Okay. And what I do is very, very important because I can either play to the action or I can play, you know, subtext with sound. There's a lot of color and a lot of depth I bring to the story. But I think you have to make sure the first thing you do is submit to the story. You know, you got to serve the story and put it in the sound that is right. And throughout the whole process, you know, Q and Lance and I had all these high level creative discussions about what we wanted the sound to do, what it was supposed to serve to create that experience, because sound is very, very powerful. And if it's not done right, people will fall out of the story and you'll lose them. But when we begin the post-production, the audio post-production side, we don't do anything until it's a locked edit. And we prioritize, dialogue is king, okay? Dialogue is king. If you can't hear what the actors are saying, you're gonna lose your audience. So I prioritize the first thing of getting a good solid dialogue edit. That means cleaning up everything. That goes back to what I was saying before. having recorded the production dialogue, I know what I have to work with in post. So I can already, before I even get an edit, I can take bits and pieces of the audio and try clean up things on it before I even get to it. But then once you get that edit, then we got to prioritize, what is next. And when we look at this film, it's so heavily performance driven and backgrounds. So therefore, I don't really have to do much from a hardcore sound effects editing standpoint. I just have to create the environment for the actors and for the experience. So then I can direct my efforts. I think the biggest challenge, and Q and I were talking about this today, is what music do we put in? You can't just put in a score for score's sake. You can't just drop in music to be gratuitous. Again, like the title, everything must be purposeful to drive the story. And those are serious decisions that I don't make, guys. I don't make those. It's Q and Lance make that decision. And then once, all that is put in, and like they were doing, I do a rough mix. We make notes, we go and polish it. And then the big thing for audio is, well, what are the deliverables, and what do we need to set up for 5.1 and Atmos, and are we trying to get it to Netflix or Apple or whatever? Those are some very serious considerations that the post audio team has to address. But my work happens at the very end, and the thing with music, for instance, most directors and filmmakers, if they're really good filmmakers, they place a premium on audio because they understand how powerful it is. But when you get to music, that's the one place directors lose control. And because most directors and producers don't necessarily understand how to communicate in musical terms to the composer. And then you have the battle between the composer and the sound designer. It's like, who's going to carry this scene? Is music going to carry this scene, or sound effects going to carry the scene? And again, those are some pretty high level decisions that the director and the producer have to make. And I'm sure Lance and Q are laboring over that as we speak.
Sound effects.
But that's pretty much it from the audio side. I know that's kind of simplistic, but for all of you out there who have had me for class and understand the soundscape project in the sound effects spotting session that we talked about, I'm about to have one of those meetings with Lance and Q pretty soon. And that's where we're going to compile our list of what we want to hear and why we want to hear it. And then I just go to town and do my thing.
So before we wrap up here tonight, we do have a surprise for everyone in the audience. We have a couple of scenes that we've clipped. Mike, if you're able to, he's going to share his screen, and then we're going to view a couple of scenes.
Yeah, make sure that when I start it, if you don't hear any audio, let me know, okay? I got clip number 1 up here. Did you want it, Funk, Q, Lance, anybody, did you want to intro what we're seeing on here before I play it, or you want to just play the clips?
Funk, Q, I don't know what we've got, but I think I
The
do.
first one is Reggie walking in. Yes, this one here.
Okay, Reggie walking in. Okay, I'm
Well,
playing.
sorry, I was telling Lance.
He's Reggie, our one of our we have 4 leads. These are 2 leads here, Reggie and Pastor Clark. Reggie has just left high school in a hurry. Basically everyone shuns him, and he's constantly sort of at a boiling point, a breaking point, and he's trying to lean into the pastor for some help. And
okay, let me know if you don't hear the audio. Let me know.
I can't do this.
Hold on.
I thought I could handle it. I thought they just let me be at least. School was supposed to help me. They said I needed to get back into a new routine. That new routine is everyone looking at me. They hate me.
What about when I look at you, son? You feel love?
What?
Well, you said that everyone hates you, and you can feel it because they look at you. Well, I'm asking you. I'm looking at you. Do you feel loved right now?
Yes, I guess.
All right, then. You can feel love, too. And those people you say hate you, they don't know you.
Look, I get it, all right?
I don't think you do. And I'm not entirely convinced that you want to feel better. You can ask for forgiveness all day long, but until you recognize...
Believe me, there was no forgiveness for what I did.
You're missing my point. Love? You got God's love. You never lost that, ever. And you're not going to. Forgiveness. He offers that too. You have to learn to live a forgiven life, Reg. I need you to believe that.
Right on.
Want me to go right into clip 2?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Help! Help! Somebody needs help! Get in. Get in! Hands up.
All right. Take it easy.
Shut up!
Please don't
Shut
shoot.
up!
Please don't shoot.
Shut up!
Go ahead and take whatever you
I
want.
don't know where it is!
Paroxetine's second shelf up. White box.
You remembered?
It was 3 days ago. You're wearing the same shirt.
See? I'm considering this a refill. I'm not some drugged out junkie with a gun trying to rob you, okay? This is a refill.
Except you are.
You know what I've been through? Do you know what I've been through? Since you wouldn't help me?
I'll give you one.
No. I said this was a refill. I'm taking my refill.
Okay, even with VA insurance, it's still $30. Never mind the fact that I'll still be breaking the law.
I don't have $30.
I'll give you one.
One pill.
And the gun?
One pill. Now what?
You hungry?
Oh man, I
Right
want to see the
on.
next scene.
No. It's good. Oh, man.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't bring the applause machine with me. It's in the control room.
Very
Eric.
cool. Well, I hope everyone
Yes.
enjoyed that. I loved getting to see that scene. That was amazing. And I'm very proud to have worked on that. Does anybody have any closing remarks they would like to, or little bits of wisdom they'd like to tell everyone before we leave?
I mean, I don't know, man. Just
Was there
you
any
know,
questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any of the students have any questions?
We have like 5 minutes for
Oh.
questions. So let's get like 2 questions. If anybody
Alright.
wants to enter
Facilitate
them
that.
in the chat.
Oh, is that how? Oh, look, there's a chat. Yeah, I
You
will
left
say
him speechless.
I will say this just after seeing what we saw, because it reminded me of what we sort of went through on set. And so as a director, I've been in this business for, over 2 decades, but like I said, in front of the camera, I've been teaching acting for almost 10 years. And that was really my focus, was all performance based, but I have such a passion for film. Um, from a director standpoint, lean into the strengths of your crew, believe in them. And then you know the weak ones are right, and then don't believe in them. Just find the ones that you believe in and lean into them and encourage them to do their best. And that will filter throughout the entire production. But for what I was aiming to achieve, Funk's got his expertise, Andy's got his, like we've all got my expertise is performance. And I would tell my actors damn near almost every scene, no one's come to watch you perform. No one's buying a ticket to watch you perform as this character. I don't give a damn about your performance. I care about the way you are affected by and the way you affect the person across from you. And I think that rings true in every scene throughout this film. Is my focus in coaching these actors and directing them through it was all about how do you affect the person across from you on camera. And then from there, it was about, Ryan, how can you capture that? and yeah, it was all about, again, the whole philosophy of like, how does your job affect the person who takes it from there? The same holds true for performances. Actor A, how does actor B receive what you're giving them? And actor B, how do you receive it? And then how do you punch back? No one's watching one performance. We're watching what's happening in the middle. And I'm so proud of what everybody did on this film. And I love seeing that stuff. I can't wait to see this whole thing come together.
I see a few questions, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have a couple of questions. I'll rattle them off real quick. Was the lighting in the second scene done in post? I'll quickly say no, but I would love to get Ryan there to talk about that.
So that was absolutely done on set. The only thing that was done in post was literally just putting what we call a LUT, which most of you I think know, throwing a LUT on it. And I don't think he changed anything because those are the colors that I chose. Those colors were actually chosen for specific reasons. Again, what I did is I broke down all different colors that came from the Bible, because this piece is, a faith-based piece, but at the same time, I looked at the emotional and psychological aspect of it. So if you see a lot of cyan and green, which shows envy and guilt, a lot of selfishness and gluttony, sickness, and all that, which you could see was on the gentleman with the gun side, and then the red was based off of the the blood of Christ, but at the same time, there's a lot of anger and a lot of fire, kind of hot-heady, and all that other stuff built into that as well. And that's why I chose those specific colors. We shot the piece very contrasty, and I wanted to gamble a lot on the lighting and the contrast and the handheld work, because I felt like as a faith-based piece that's never been done, and I felt like it would be a major asset to be able to approach all genres, or like all demographics that would watch this film and utilize some of those textures and techniques. So that was absolutely done on set, but again, they threw a LUT on it.
So how did it feel to have the last martini shot of production?
Dude, that was wild.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Funny Instagram videos of it.
Yes.
A lot of cheering.
Your martini
hugging.
Picture, James, was you drew the martini.
I can't take credit for that. Actually, that was Alex the first AC drew that, but I held it up as we slated the last time.
That's right.
Okay, so the last question here: do you think there are cinematic drawbacks to filming digitally over film?
Yes, 100%. But there's also major assets to it as well. Shooting film is just an unbelievable art form in so many different ways. And Mike, I know you can relate 100%. But there's also major drawbacks to shooting film. There's no way that Andy Raut could have ran just him with one bag and a mic. There's no way that I could have had just one AC and 1 second AC. There had to have been a loader. There had to have been so many other things. And there's also the scariness of getting developed, and there's light leaks and improper exposures and stuff like that. So I think for this specific film, digital was definitely the way to go, because we flirted with film for a minute, and then it was just like, there's no way, like, not for money purposes, but just this film needed to feel a little bit more fast paced. It needed to feel I don't want to say state of the art, but at least present times, and it needed to be able to connect to multiple demographics. And when you shoot film, a lot of the times you could kind of not really scare demographics away, but you will bottleneck that demographic a little bit sometimes, or you might expose it tremendously. But the cost would have been insane for the film, and the picture itself, like, depending on what film stocks we would have chosen, it could have hindered it, to be honest with you. It would have put it more and bottlenecked the film into a specific genre versus something that you can relate to in all different demographics, if that makes any sense. But so yeah, I always love to shoot film, and I always will over anything else, but I absolutely have just a lot of fun learning and being a part of the digital age. It's been a blessing for sure. But yeah.
Very cool.
I hope that answers that question.
I think so, yeah. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to all of our guests here. It was great seeing you all again and reconnecting like this. And thank you to everyone who took the time out of their night to check out this panel. We will have another one. We'll have another one next month, so look forward to that.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you all.